Day 24 of my 30-day van conversion challenge. This morning I had the very sad realization that there were two things that I'd forgotten to wire up yesterday. I needed to remove the old cable from underneath the van so that I could replace it with my alternator wiring, which also meant that I needed to remove some of this insulation so that I could access the grommet to thread the wire through to underneath the van. And when I tested it by turning the van on, the alternator light came on, which I was so relieved about. The second thing I needed to do, and hopefully the final thing, was my earthing cable. So I assembled the cable and sanded down a bolt hole to bare metal so that I could attach the earthing cable there. I was quite excited to use the inverter to hoover up the van floor before finally attaching everything to the wall. I added pocket holes to the wheel covers and screwed the battery frame straight into the floor. Please let that be the end of electrics now. Next I started on the ceiling. I had to cut the battens to size and then slot them into the tongue and groove from the current piece. This was still a bit of a faff, but much easier than putting up the first piece. I used the jigsaw to trim some of the pieces to fit around the roof vent. I had bought a right-angled screwdriver so that I could attach the end of the tongue and groove pieces to the batten in my headliner, but this turned out not to really work very well. Eventually I realised I could do this with a socket set instead, which was so much easier. It was still a bit of a pain, but it did work. I made sure to pre-drill holes for the end pieces and to partly screw the screws in to make it easier. This job made my arms ache so much, and I still need to varnish some of the ceiling pieces, so I did stop before I finished and we'll have to come back to it another day, but this is how it's looking now. I started making a plan of how I wanted the walls and ceiling to meet, and I laid up some more battens so that the walls could come right up to meet the ceiling. I also still needed to add some short battens to the ceiling, so I did those on one side of the van so that I could complete the ceiling to wall transition. I decided I wanted to install my 12-volt and USB panels into the bed alcove, so I stenciled around those. And just as I began cutting the plywood for the walls, it started to rain, so I got a bit fed up. I decided to put the roof vent cover up and then call it a day before the rain got worse. So this is how the van is looking after day 24, and I'll be back tomorrow with day 25.